Days from the Wise Guys. I'm Dave McCann. This is one of the best weeks of the year, Christmas week. We hope that you're spending it with your family and friends, and know that we are too. So instead of a regular show and podcast, we've got something we think is going to be pretty cool. A bunch of clips from some of our interviews so far on the Wise Guys. We think you'll like them, and we remind you that those interviews in their entirety are available at ysguys.com. So let's begin with our first clip from our interview with two BYU legends, Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young and Elder Vi Sikahema, former BYU star who's serving as a general authority for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Here is their take on how each of them saved the other's careers.
I don't know if you guys, I'll tell you the real quick story. That I had a role in Steve going to San Francisco. I may have shared this with Blaine. And Steve will remember the story as it rolls out. Steve is, he's in Tampa, and my rookie year, we're playing, I think it may have been Steve's second year there after he left the USFL, but we're playing the last game of the season in St. Louis. And both teams are like 3-12 going into that last game. You remember this, Steve?
Yeah, you set an NFL record that day. I watched you because we were both whoever lost
was going to get the first pick.
Choice. And so our team wouldn't you returned like 4 punts for touchdowns. Nobody would tackle because they had to lose. And I set an NFL record that day. You're right, I forgot about that.
Amazing
that day.
I returned 2 punts for touchdowns in the second quarter, and we win 21-17. And Steve had, all Steve had was James Wilder, maybe probably one of the top 3 backs in the NFL.
Yes.
There was no one else on that team. So because we won, people in the organization were so mad that we won that game because they wanted the first pick.
They won it off of your kicks. I know where you're going. If you hadn't returned those kicks, we would have won, and then you would have the first pick, and I would have not gotten out of Tampa because they wouldn't have taken Vinny Testaverde because Ray Perkins hated lefties and hated southpaws, and I wouldn't have gotten to San Francisco. I do owe you my life. I owe you my life. I forgot about that. I do owe you everything. Oh, my gosh.
Steve and I have had
life. I forgot about that.
When Steve writes his next book, he'll include
yes.
Vi Sikahema doesn't return 2 punts for touchdowns. And Steve, here's what happened to me. It was the last game of the season, and the next day was a Monday. We voted on the Pro Bowl because of those 2 punt returns. I get to go to the Pro Bowl, and my agent had negotiated, they call them escalator clauses. And if you reach certain things, that they would tear up your contract. And one of them that he put in was if I go to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, they tear up my contract and would pay me whoever was making the most.
So we made you rich, and you made me.
You guys are best friends.
Sikahema did it for me
all the way back.
I'm glad we were able in 2023.
But Vi told me this story before. I didn't realize that Steve didn't even know this story, Vi. I can't even believe Steve didn't know it.
I known it deep down.
He was there. He knows the story
together because we had to lose to get that pick, and that we lost. And he made it happen. And I think the Cardinals were trying to lose too. It was amazing. The line of scrimmage was like no one really moved. And then kind of like fell down.
Nobody's covering punts.
Nobody had to. And Vi was the ones like, hey, you know what? Too bad. I'm going for the Pro Bowl.
Nobody was trying. Nobody was trying, but I'm the 53rd man on the roster, on the 53-man roster. I'm trying to get a job the next year, so I'm the only one going 110%.
BYU and NBA star Danny Ainge joined the Wise Guys to talk about the challenge of guarding Michael Jordan. One last golf question about Michael Jordan, because you were in his special. Was it
30 for 30? Well, it's just an ESPN special.
Yeah, whatever it was really good. Yeah. What was it like guarding him? When you see all the assignments are different, and now you got 23, and then what meant more, beating the Bulls on the Celtics or beating Jordan by yourself on the golf course?
Oh, I mean, he was obviously he's not the same kind of golfer. So like beating him on the golf course is fun and exciting, and he's good. I respect his game.
But you were better.
But I think I was a little better. But beating him on the basketball court, where he's not better. I mean, Michael Jordan. The one thing about him that you can't ever deny is his entire career. Every playoff series, even in '86 when we had this stacked team, we beat them in 3 straight games in the playoffs in the first round. But he was clearly the best player.
Didn't he have 66 in one of those games?
60-something.
That was one of the most fun games. I remember that game because down the stretch, he and Larry were just trading shots.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
Yeah, no, he was so special. But even then, he was the best player. And then throughout the rest of his career, as he started winning championships and, he got a little better team around him, there was never a doubt at the end of any series that he was ever in who the best player in the world was. It was Michael Jordan. And, I don't know who else that's been. I don't know what other player even comes close to, being undefeated and being the best player in a playoff series every year.
Did you enjoy your moments when you had to guard him as the ultimate challenge?
Yeah, the ultimate challenge. And if you did stop him, it was, a miracle. And if you didn't, so what? Nobody guards him. But I remember a funny time in this 63-point game. And I got accused of doing this a little bit more than the coaches or my teammates would have liked. But Walton fouls out guarding Jordan in an ISO. And he's screaming and cursing me out, like, quit switching. Guard your own man.
This is Walton yelling at
you for
me.
switching with him.
I go, hey, I just want you to be able to appreciate how hard it is.
The great Marie Osmond joined the Wise Guys. And she was a student at BYU before her stardom kind of made that impossible. She joined the show and shared her love for America, which was fantastic during our amazing visit.
Had to perform the national anthem several times. Is that tough?
It's one of those songs that you really should know the words and why they were written, because it's very, very moving. But you better know what you're doing, because when those jets fly overhead, you'll go, huh? What?
So you performed Stadium of Fire,
Yes.
the national anthem at the Stadium of Fire, and I thought it was spectacular. And as you're finishing, you're ready to sing Home of the Brave. You look up, and here come those 3 F-35s.
Yeah.
What is that like? What is that like for a performer to finish that song? And you see the jets before everyone else because you're actually looking that way. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what's that like?
When it's the most exhilarating. I mean, it brings tears to your eyes. Guys, I love this country. I mean, I have done many, many shows with USO, and Bob Hope was like a second dad to me. And so when you see firsthand what our military does to allow us the freedoms that we do in this country, it's so hard for me because I've been in those medical tents.
Right.
And, sorry. I don't understand people that don't honor them because they deserve it. Not just them, but their families. They sacrifice so much. And so anything I can do for them, and that's why I love this last show on the 4th, is because it went worldwide to all of the servicemen and women.
170 countries, I think.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know how many millions
where the
of
air
people.
bases
But they all saw that.
Super Bowl champion and former Cougar Kyle Van Noy joined the Wise Guys to discuss his first visit with Bill Belichick, the Patriots coach, right after the Patriots traded with the Lions to get Van Noy into Foxborough. And here's what Van Noy and Belichick talked about. Were you nervous to meet Bill Belichick, the master of the game?
I forgot that in the story. So I didn't meet him until the middle of practice. Like in punt practice, he's like twirling his whistle like he always does. And he was like, yo, Van Noy. And he like waves me over and he's like, man, he's like, let me tell you something. As he's twirling his whistle, he's like, I always get my guys. He's like, you've been one of my guys since you came out of college, and I'm sorry I couldn't get you in the draft, but I got you. And no, I want you to be successful. And just that, after everything I just went through, to have the greatest coach one of the greatest defensive minds to ever give to play or coach in football, to give me that confidence and still that right away. Anything in my career before that, it didn't even matter. I had a clean slate, and I took off from there. And it was awesome to finally have confidence from somebody like that, and that magnitude in the middle of the season gave me that. I just took off from there.
What a story.
You need to dictate the game defensively. And I think that's why people want me to coach.
Yeah, there you go. And it's interesting because what you've been through, Kyle, you'll be the kind of coach that understands, like Bill Belichick understands, this is my guy, and I'm gonna tell him he's my guy, because I know if he's confident and he knows I believe in him, he's gonna play faster, he's gonna hit harder, he's gonna play loose, and he's gonna be a great player. He needs to know that I believe in him. What a difference that made for you. That's a great story, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad I get that the rest of my life too. I hope to take that, and I try to take that with anything I'm doing, whether it's business, whether it's speaking to a young kid that needs help, whoever, business people, just the amount that if you have the respect and the confidence and the humbleness to be on the same page and get exactly what you want communicated is key. I mean, that's half the problem with people that are going through marriage problems is communication. If people are just communicate, you can do so many good things. And that's kind of what I try to do, is just be a very, very good communicator.
8-time PGA Tour winner Dan Forsman joined the Wise Guys to talk about what it was like competing on tour with Tiger Woods.
Most everybody in the world will never be opposite Tiger Woods in a grouping in a tournament. But you have. What's it like?
Well, it was the final round of the U.S. Open at Olympia Fields in Chicago, one of your favorite towns. And it was the Sunday round, and I got to the first tee, and he was very cordial. Tiger's a gentleman to play with, truly is. He's very aware of the distractions, all of his followers. And on the first tee, I can tell you there must have been 50 cameras lined up, power winders, and every time he took his pencil and put it in his pocket, the power winders are firing. So it was clear that it was going to be an exceptional day for me to witness. And he didn't play his best that day, but he had some shots that under that kind of U.S. Open challenge were hard to forget. The one that came to mind was the 17th hole, par 3. It was about 240 yards. He had a forehand that was into the sun, and no one could see it, but it landed about 6 feet from the hole, and the whole place just erupted down there. It sounded like a BYU touchdown last Saturday night. So.
But now you're beating him, and so what? He's got the pressure of all the cameras and all that stuff, and you're over there. You're over there having a better day. Is that weird?
No, he had an off day, I think, that day. I don't remember the result, frankly. But as I say, he was just a gentleman every time I had a chance to play with him, and he comported himself, with great distinction. And he understands what he means to the game of golf. And I was just really, really impressed, and always have been, the way he operates himself.
I was at the Masters this last year, and we followed Tiger a little bit. He had just come back from the injury. He wasn't 100% healthy, obviously. When he's trying to come up the hill, as you finish, you come up the hill at Augusta National. It's not easy to walk it, especially not 4 days in a row, right? And on a bad wheel. But the crowds were just ridiculous, and just swarming around and running and trying to just get a peek. I can't imagine how difficult that would be to focus and try to play golf with all of that going on around you. How has he done it for all this time?
Well, it started early for him, didn't it? I mean, we won the 3 junior titles, U.S. juniors, and then he went on to win the U.S. Amateur 3 times in a row. And he had to deal with all of that at a very early age. And I think skill to do comes from doing, and I think that's how he was able to handle it. And his father, of course, is documented. He was influential in getting him to understand pressure and dealing with it and being able to perform under those circumstances. So,
Sheri Dew is the Executive Vice President and Chief Content Officer of Deseret Management Corporation, which oversees Deseret Book, Deseret News, KSL Television, and a bunch of other things. She's also an author and public speaker. But during her high school days in Ulysses, Kansas, she was a basketball star, but her shyness kept her from playing basketball at BYU, a decision she told us she regrets. You have written about a life lesson you learned in 1971 when there was a spot open on the BYU women's basketball team, and you did not take it, go after it.
Yeah, classic.
And then you've talked about never hiding your talents as a lesson from that. If you could have a do-over, would you be there for the first day?
Yeah. When I learned that they played that whole season one player short, and literally Elaine Michaelis said to me, "I think I was looking for you." Well, who knows if I could have made the team? I don't know.
Oh,
who knows if I
could have made
it?
the team.
But
23-17 is
you could have
enough.
been. And when I think of basketball, high school basketball, the two states that come to mind for me are Indiana and Kansas.
Yeah.
It's good basketball in those states, and always has been.
Yes,
so
that's true.
If you're 23-17 in the state of Kansas, you can play at BYU.
And it was just a couple years before.
But I didn't know that. And cracking open the gym door in the Richards PE building, and I'm going, oh man, those girls look really good. I don't think I can do it. And it's like I froze. I couldn't go in, and it kills me that I made that mistake.
And now you stare into the eyes of young women all over the world, and you say, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Step out. Say, okay, ask for help. Ask for God's help. Pray. Ask for courage. But don't do that and then wonder for years if you could have made it. And I would have never found out about that opening, by the way, if I hadn't been speaking to all the girls on scholarship in at a thing down here.
Yeah.
And I thought, I think I'm going to tell them how much I envy them and how proud I am of them, really, how envious I am that they've been able to do something I kind of always wished I could. I think I'll tell them that story, which I had never told. And Elaine Michaelis happened to be sitting in the audience, and that's when she said, you want to know something about that team?
Here's the rest of the story.
It was the rest of the story. Yeah.
Wow. BYU Athletic Director Tom Holmoe has 4 Super Bowl rings, all with the 49ers. Before that, he was a defensive back at BYU. His love for the game has kept him young at heart. Tom Holmoe here tonight on The Wise Guys. This game of football is giving you the high of highs, 4-time WAC champion, 4-time Super Bowl champion. It's also brought you to your knees. Head job at Cal didn't work out like you'd hoped. You become an associate director at BYU, associate athletic director in the middle of a firestorm where a lot of the head coaches dismissed, a number of others are out. And then 2005, you become the athletic director. And here you are getting ready for another season. So Blaine and I would like to know what it is about this love for this game that you have that has kept you through it all.
Believe me, that's what it is. I mean, it's just I love the game. I love the people that play it. And one of the things I've learned at BYU is, I played football, baseball, basketball, and ran track when I was a kid growing up. And, when you start concentrating on football in college and pro. But when I got to BYU, one of the things people asked me as a coach, I had failed as a coach, as a head coach. I felt that I had done a good job as an assistant, but as a head coach, I had failed. But when I got to BYU, the question was going to be for our family. Lavelle brought me back and said, hey, you need to come chill out at BYU. Yeah. We'll see. You come here. It's your people. You'll give us something good. But after that, you determine what you want to do. And then, so people say, you want to coach? You want to get back into coaching? But when I was there, I got to know all the other athletes from the other sports, women's teams, men's team. And I found out it's just not the football team. All these kids are dynamite. They're strong. They're beautiful. They're courageous. They're vulnerable. They have highs. They have lows. They have dreams. Some of them have come from terrible situations. Some of them are going to make it. Some of them aren't. And that was just like being on a team. Yeah. So I kind of put myself in a position to say, all right, I'm not going to be their coach, but I'm going to mentor a lot of these kids. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend more of my time than maybe some of my peers that are really, really good at compliance or business or fundraising or whatever, marketing. I didn't have any of those skills. So I just went back to Lavelle, and he hired a bunch of people to do that. So I hired a bunch of people.
We all learned that from Lavelle.
And then I spent most of my time just connecting with the coaches and the players. And I'm going to go to I don't know. I might go to 100 games this year.
Right.
When you add them all up, and all the different sports, and every one of them will be my bliss. That's what I do. I love it.
And your wife's such a good sport because she's sitting right next to you.
And each one of our teams and each one of the sports brings a uniqueness to the kind of the acumen of that sport and what they need to do to fulfill it. But the leadership, the culture, all those things are the same.
Jimmer Fredette is one of the most exciting basketball players who ever suit up for BYU. He had some really big nights in his college career, including one in particular at Arizona. Hey, so we're going to go down memory lane here. We're going to throw a date in the score, and then we want you to tell us something unique about that night. Now, you won a lot of games, but we've picked the best of the best. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Let's go December 28, 2009. You score 49 at Arizona, which is a McHale Center record. What happened that night?
What an unbelievable night. I mean, no one expected us to go in that night and beat Arizona. They were a top 10 team at the McHale Center. They never lose in that arena. Amazing fans. And right from the get-go, I just was feeling it for some reason. I had a bunch of threes in the first half. I think Jackson scored a bunch. Guys we were just feeling really good offensively and defensively. I think I had 9 threes that game. I think somewhere in that area. And just the basket was huge, right? And then I just remember at the end, the fans at the McHale Center giving us a standing ovation as we left. And that was something that I remember.
Wow.
On a night like that, when you say the basket was huge, what's that like when you say the basket is huge?
Yeah, no, it just is. You get into this zone. It's kind of like when you're I try to always, liken it to when I'm working out, right? Like when I work out, I try to find a zone when I'm playing where I'm just zoning out and I'm actually just making shots effortlessly, not thinking about it at all, not worrying about anything that's going on. It's just the ball's going up and making baskets. And you can end up making 20, 25, 30 in a row from 3, and you're not even thinking about it. And then I try to translate that into the game where it's that's the same thing. I'm just going through my workout, basically. It doesn't matter what the defense is doing. It doesn't matter what they're trying to do. I have a counter for all of it. And once I get to my spot, if I get that shot up, I feel like it's going in. So you just feel like you're in that zone, like you're working out. Getting your shots off like there was no one there and nothing, and you're just in an empty gym by yourself.
BYU football player Chase Roberts earned SportsCenter's #1 play of the day when he made that one-handed touchdown grab to beat Arkansas. Chase might also be the only college football player who speaks a certain foreign language.
And where did you go on your mission?
I was in Canada, so the Calgary mission.
Okay.
So what was harder?
Calgary, Alberta.
Learning the BYU playbook or learning to speak Tagalog?
Yeah, so I spoke Tagalog. There's a lot of Filipino people there.
Yeah.
It was definitely harder. Being in a country where it's mostly English, you had to learn, study the language because you weren't immersed in it.
Yeah.
If I went to the Philippines and was immersed, I'd be able to pick it up a little quicker. But I had to study the language and try to get people to talk to me as much as I can in Tagalog, and so that I could learn it. But
you still got it?
I still feel like
Earl.
who is this? There's some Filipinos on the
Blue Cougar wants to. Blue Cougar says, "I'd like to hear Chase speak some Tagalog." So introduce yourself as you would have as a missionary in Tagalog.
Yeah. So kamusta? Ako si Elder Roberts or Chase Roberts. At missionary ako sa Calgary. At mahal ko ang mga Pilipino, mahal ko ang Ebanghelyo ni Jesucristo, at yung Book of Mormon ay totoo. Yun yung totoo ko at sa pangalan ni Jesucristo. Amen.
That's fantastic.
It's kind of my.
In Texas, it's y'all gonna let us in or not? That's how we do. Travis Hansen was a star at BYU and an even bigger star in the European League overseas. He told the Wise Guys that when he was in college, he actually tried to quit the team 3 times.
So I wanted to quit 3 times in my career.
Really?
First year was with Heath Schroyer at BYU. I was newly, maybe a sophomore at BYU, and I was so tired. Missionary feet, dipping them in Epsom salt, skin falling off, legs were killing me. I was done. Like I was done. I told my wife, babe, I can't do this. She's like, look, it's your choice, but you committed. You commit, at least finish the year out. And I was mentally, done. And she said, just finish the year out. Finish the year out. Never thought about quitting again at BYU. Get to the NBA. NBA is tough. I mean, the environment's tough. The people are tough. I'm not playing very well. I broke my foot. I'm in a brace. I'm not playing really well. And so I called my dad. I'm done. I can make money doing something else. And he's kind of like, well, you're making pretty good money for a first year.
That's what dads do. Now, son, think of this through.
Yeah, you might want to think this. Go ahead, keep talking. So and it says might want to think this through. Might want to commit. And you signed a contract. You got a responsibility. This is a job, and you need to do your best. And third was at Spain. The first year in Spain, I played for a guy named Dusko, and I practiced so much, overtrained so much that my right calf turned black. I broke every muscle in my calf, and I hated it. I hated running in the mountains and training. And again, I told my wife, babe, I think I'm done. I'll go do something else. And again, the credit goes to her. She's like, kind of suck it up, bro. You got other teammates that have been here 5 years. Can't be that hard, Maybe because you came from the soft NBA or something. This is, Europe's tough. And I said, okay. So, these people not allowing me to quit, but instead validating me and sustaining me and even kind of inspiring me to stay in it, absolutely changed my life.
That's awesome. So people come on the show and they always tell us these stories, Travis, which, Mark Wilson was on with us. You remember the great Mark Wilson, first round draft pick of the Oakland Raiders. Mark was telling us the time he went into Lavelle Edwards' office and quit, and Lavelle talked him out of it, and then he came back and ends up being a first round draft pick. So I think we all have to have somebody that validates us and tells us, "No, you can keep doing this." When we come across those are great stories. We appreciate.
Steve Young may be the most recognizable BYU graduate in the entire world. Certainly a big star in the NFL and a Hall of Famer. He's got a new book out called The Law of Love, which is available at DeseretBook.com. I love the line in your book that reads, "The law of love is undefeated." Expound on that and your motivation to write that book.
That's great. So I think it's important to define the law of love, which is loving as God loves, which if you think about the scripture, my work and my glory is bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. There's what God gets glory through our glory. So in other words, his love for us is outward. In other words, I don't receive, there's no deal that I'm making. I only receive through my love for you is to grow and receive glory. And that's the idea. That's the whole point of life. And so if we're going to do that, then we need to receive, how we receive glory is through others and seeing others and watching for them and having a language of healing and peace and prosperity and abundance. And what do my relationships look like? And in doing that, that's how to me, that's the irony of the quote from the scriptures, lose yourself and you'll find yourself, is that the irony is in loving as God loves, which is the law of love and seeking other people's healing. That's how you receive, ironically, the full measure of heaven. And so doing that, law of love is undefeated because all the other laws of God are kind of this world. They're more self-interested, things that I do to receive things, kind of like transactional. I'm going to be obedient because then I'm going to receive something. Yeah. And anything that's self-interested over time, no matter how righteous, will rot in self-interest. And the only things that are perpetual, the only thing that last forever is outwardly seeking others' healing. And so if you think about a law that has to be, if there's a law in heaven, it has to be a perpetual law. it can't rot. It can't, and so that's the idea that it's undefeated forever. If you're ever down, it's like, that's why I say we're always called wounded healers. The wounded healers of the world, that's all of us. That's our capacity, because we're all wounded. We all have the capacity to heal others. And as we seek Moroni, I always say, if I ever get a tattoo, I'm going to have it say Moroni 7.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts and stops and ends right there, is the idea that we can have transfigured eyesight to see other humans as God sees other humans. And in that sacred way, we have in the restored gospel an ability to understand why, because of pre-existence, because we're all divine, because heavenly parents that have a design for us to grow. All of that gives us a great superstructure to understand what we're trying to do. And then all we're supposed to do is help the Savior in the atonement extend into every relationship wherever we are. And I always tell people, what relationships? Well, every relationship. I was just at the left. I was just late here trying to turn left at the green light, the arrow behind a guy, and the arrow turned green and he didn't go. And I'm going to be late for you guys. And now we're in a relationship. You know, like we're in a relationship. And so what's the most healing, peaceful, kind of abundant way to deal with that relationship that I'm in now? And I decided that despite my desire to honk, I decided to just take a breath. Just breathe. Just breathe through it. If he misses the whole light, maybe I'll figure out how to say something to him. But I don't know if he'll miss the whole light. So just let it breathe. And then he saw it, left, and went on. And then he and I are now in a more abundant relationship because he's not, you know.
Dr. Derwin Gray, former BYU defensive back and pastor of the Transformation Church in South Carolina. During his Cougar days, he was a stud in the secondary, and he explained to Wise Guys why he was one of the reasons Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy.
Hey, here's a question for you. How important was your role, and we've had Ty on here, in helping Ty Detmer win the Heisman Trophy?
Well, you know, so first of all, Ty Detmer is one of those people that he's groomed by his father. I mean, Ty woke up in high school. He didn't eat breakfast first. He threw the ball first. So, you know, so Ty comes to BYU. He's in the West Coast offense. You got Coach Chow. You got Coach French. You got Coach Rim. I mean, it's stacked, right? So I played a part in that because I was on the team. But that offensive line, they loved the block for him. Andy Boyce, who ran a forever in a 40, would just be open all day long. Chris Smith was amazing at tight end. You had the running backs. You had like Matt Bellini, who that 69H option, I think it was.
That's the play, 69H option.
Red right 69H. I mean, Bellini was unstoppable. I mean, you had Nyberg. You had so many great players, and Ty was just so competitive. And all of us, that was our Heisman. Like, that wasn't just Ty's. Like, that was our Heisman. And it's pretty cool to go, you know what? From the same city in San Antonio, I got to play with a Heisman Trophy winner. But that's not my favorite Ty Detmer story, though.
And let's hear it.
My favorite Ty Detmer story is both of us from San Antonio. We're from Texas, so that means we like to fish. And there used to be a golf course in South Provo. I don't even know if
it's East Bay now, but it used to be called Timpanogos Golf Course.
Okay, yeah. So behind the golf course was this gnarly river creek thing, and man, we would just slay channel catfish all day long. Like
cattails and mossy, just like the South, right?
Oh yeah, I mean we were just slaying them. And so I actually have a picture of us that my wife and I lived in Wymount Terrace. We came to Wymount Terrace. I kept the catfish. My wife's like, you ain't keeping those here. So we actually took them back, and they still live.
Oh, you can't kill a catfish. You can't kill a catfish.
Yeah, it was.
Elijah Bryant had a unique journey from BYU to winning an NBA championship. He left the Cougars a year early for the draft, but he didn't get drafted. So he went to Europe. Eventually, the Milwaukee Bucks called, and a few days later, Bryant made his NBA debut on the last day of the regular season against the Chicago Bulls. Elijah Bryant, former BYU star, international star currently, is with us and is one of his rare North American interviews. That's what we'll call that, a rare North American interview. Let's go to May 16th, 2021. After all the hopes and dreams and all that stuff, growing up wanting to play in the NBA, you're in the NBA. The Bulls are the opponent. You're playing for the Bucks. It's your one and only, so far, NBA regular season game, and you go for 16 points. So let's talk about the first basket that you made. Do you remember the moment, the feeling, or was it just all locked in business?
No, I remember it because I remember it was a tight race. They're in the standings, and I remember the coaches watching the game and kind of figure out who's playing, who's not playing. And then once they kind of figured out who's playing, they came in, you're dressing, and all of a sudden I remember I was in the back, and I was like, because the warm-ups, like I had never really worn the warm-ups, so I was like, the other guys were laughing at me. I was like practicing ripping off the warm-ups, and they were just like dying laughing. And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to be the first time out there and get embarrassed and not be able to rip them off. So we come out to the court. They get kind of notification that I think Cleveland won or Brooklyn won, so this game didn't matter. So all the main guys, I'm not playing, whatever.
And main guys, we're talking about some of the best in the world.
Yeah, Giannis, Drew,
So Giannis to us, and I've not been next to Giannis and haven't called games when he was in college or any of that. We get around a lot of athletes, but he seems like a freak among freaks. Is he great to play with?
He's the Greek freak, obviously. Yeah, he's very, very athletic.
Nobody that big and that long is supposed to be able to run and jump and do all that, right?
Exactly. It's very, it's freaky.
So you're on the bench, and the coach looks at you and says, Bryant, you're in? What was that moment?
I remember it because I was sitting next to Drew, and we had the COVID mask on because you had to wear a mask on the bench. And good thing we did because it felt like I felt like I could see my heart bouncing from my chest before he called me in, because I knew you kind of know okay, they've been in for 5 minutes, someone's about to get subbed out, and someone finally calls me in. I'm just making sure I take everything off, right? Because in the NBA you can wear whatever you want on the sideline in terms of warm up. So mask, this shirt, that shirt, pants. Okay, I'm off, I'm in. And I told myself to calm the nerves. As soon as I get in and touch it, if I'm open, I'm shooting it. That's the first thing I'm doing.
You're going to shoot. That's going to calm your nerves. You're just going to shoot it.
I'm just going to shoot it.
No matter where you're at.
No matter where I'm at. If I'm open, I'm shooting it. So I come running down the middle of the court, and I catch it wide open and just let it go. And it goes in, obviously.
So we're out way past the three-point line, or what?
It was a regular three, but the NBA three, people don't understand, is really far if you're coming from Europe. And I had just arrived a few days ago, right? So I shoot it, and it goes in, and finally I just feel like, okay, I'm here.
Did you have a sense of, so you took a breath, right? You're like, okay, I'm here, I made a bucket, and I can settle in. But did you feel like this could be good? That felt good coming out of my hand. You know how that is? Some days it feels great coming out of your hand. Did it feel like that?
It felt like that, and it kind of felt like, this is basketball. I've been playing this my whole life, And there wasn't that many fans there at the time because COVID. I don't even remember if there were fans there, but then it was just a regular basketball game. Everything's zoned out, and then now we're just playing. Obviously, guys are faster, stronger, but it's just basketball.
But Amber Whiting is the women's head basketball coach at BYU. She's in her second season. Prior to her getting the job, as customary in the interview process in this kind of a job, she had to sit down with Elder Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Here's how that went. So protocol at BYU when being considered for head coaching positions to interview with the general authority and with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that sponsors the school. You meet with Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, former president of BYU, a good friend of ours over the years, and a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, also on the Board of Trustees. What stood out to you the most during that interview with him that you can share with us?
How personable he was. Super intimidating, right, to go up there in the first place.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and they asked my husband to be with me, so he came. And I just remember looking across the desk, and he had a full report on me and a picture of us as a family from the airport, literally 2 days before. And I'm sitting there he is going to see straight through my soul. And you just get so nervous. But he started telling me, he started with jokes and just relaxed us and just actually talked to me personally and gave me really good advice through the process, right? And advice that I wrote down on my phone, and I just keep going back to that.
Like what? Like what would be the top of the thing?
Do the right things the right way.
Yeah.
And just kept reiterating that to me that, if you do the right things the right way, the wins are going to come.
Yeah, what a unique experience with Elder Holland, where he was down here as the president of the university back when I was playing.
I don't know if there's a person on the earth that loves BYU more than President Holland.
He's amazing.
Before I left, that opportunity probably will never come, right? Just to be in that room with him, just him.
Well, when they call you on a mission, you'll probably see him again.
Yeah, you'll see him again.
But I just was like, can I give you a hug? I just had to, you know what I mean? But he just makes you feel that way, and I love it.
I love that you go into his office and you see all his BYU stuff. We were there for an interview with KSL a few years back, and I said, I mistakenly called him President Holland because he was the president when I was at BYU, and that's just, and I corrected myself. He goes, President Holland is the greatest title I've ever held in my life. Those years at BYU were the most meaningful years of my life. That's him saying it, and he means it, and it sounds like you felt that.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So when you left the room, did you go, okay, I got this job, I'm ready to go?
No.
Didn't?
No, I mean, you don't know, right? Like, and I
So
just,
what were your feelings after that meeting?
we
You're
just
like,
got in the car or in the truck, and then we looked at each other, and I just was like, I want this so bad. Like, I just could just, and then I got a call, hey, can you come down to BYU? And the way they said it to me, I just thought, okay, just be classy. Like, just take it like, man, just say congratulations, and just move on, right? Like, just keep it together is basically what I was telling myself. Because
you didn't think you were going to get it?
No, I didn't. And so then we drove down, and the whole way I was just shaking. And then I got there, and they opened the door, and they're like, hey, coach, and just kind of hugged me. And I was like, I just started crying.
so then you knew. Austin Collie is arguably the best receiver to ever play at BYU. During his heyday, he caught passes from the biggest names in the game, both in college and in the NFL. And he noticed a specific characteristic about each one of them.
You played with Max Hall, who's a great competitor, all-time winningest quarterback in BYU history. And since you were the receiver, you're probably the all-time winningest receiver in BYU history. Nobody ever talks about that. Played with Peyton Manning. You also played with Tom Brady, right? So
yeah.
Whose personality was the toughest to deal with?
Off the field or on the field?
Either,
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I have always made an effort to make the quarterback my best friend. I found out early that was probably a smart business decision. Make sure you befriend the quarterback.
Absolutely.
And, thankfully, all the guys that I've played with have we have found that kind of common ground as far as, what we want to do. And that was to win ball games. And every single one of the quarterbacks I had unbelievable amount of work ethic, which I admired and which I try to kind of match. All three of those guys are very different and unique in their own way, but they're all some of the greatest competitors that I've played with that were not afraid to put in the time and put in the reps to continue to get better. And that's ultimately what they all wanted to do, is kind of see how, what their ceiling was, and weren't afraid to put the work in to do it.
So who of the three was the most competitive? We know Max, and he's got to be up there, but of those three, and two of those are elite NFL guys, and one's an elite BYU guy, who was the most competitive?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that's more competitive than Peyton is.
Really?
Yeah. And Tom's up there as well, right? I'm a bit biased because Peyton's my guy, but I thought I worked hard. I thought I prepared hard when I was at BYU, and it was, it paled in comparison to what Peyton and the time that he would put in and the time that Tom would put in, right? Like, it is night and day, nonstop, and really that's why. I felt like I hit a different level when I got to the league, and it was really all thanks to him, just because of the standard that he held for his teammates and the standard that he held for me, right? Like, I knew what was going to be expected of me. I mean, most of these guys in the huddle was the same group. It was the same group that won the Super Bowl in 2006. I think me and Pierre Garçon were the only pieces of the puzzle that were different.
Wow.
From an offensive standpoint. And so it was, it was kind of a high pressured situation. And since I was the only different part of that offense,
sure.
Any decline in performance, obviously they'd be looking at me saying, "Yo, you need to get your act together, because this isn't how we roll."
Yeah, no pressure. Yeah.
And we wonder how teams win championships. That's how they win championships.
Yeah, that kind of expectation, right? You got to expect to win, and expect everybody to put the work in to win, right?
Absolutely.
Delaney Gibb is one of the top high school basketball players in Canada. She announced her intention to play at BYU, and then just a few minutes later, she joined the Wise Guys Live to explain why. Speaking of coming to Provo, a few minutes ago, four-star guard Delaney Gibb announced her commitment to Amber Whiting's basketball program at BYU, choosing the Cougars over just about everybody. A 5'10 superstar from Raymond, Alberta, heralded as among the best young Canadian players in the country. ESPN ranks her number 48 among the top 100. She's number 2 in all of Canada for her age group. I've seen her play. She's got a gift for the game. She'll play her senior year in Canada and join the Cougars for year 2 in the Big 12. And Delaney joins us live from Alberta at her big announcement party. And there she is. Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Way to go. Way to make a great choice, Delaney. Congratulations. We're a little biased, but we think you made a great choice. Tell us why you chose BYU.
Honestly, I went on visits basically everywhere, and BYU just felt like home to me. I have cousins and grandparents that went to BYU, and really, I just felt comfortable there and felt like it's somewhere where I can be great.
You are familiar with Provo. You played your freshman year at Timpview, just down the road from us, even though we call our show at an undisclosed location.
Yeah, but he keeps giving it away, Delaney. Like, people are going to start coming here because he's giving away our site.
But look, as a freshman, your first team All-State, is that when you thought to yourself, hey, you know what, I'm going places with basketball?
Honestly, yeah, for sure. When I was younger, I just played to have fun. Like, I just really enjoyed playing basketball. But I think that that year, my freshman year, and then leading into like spring ball and AAU was when I really like decided like this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be really good, and things kind of just took off from there.
You know, in one season at the helm, Amber Whiting pulled together the highest recruiting class in program history. This last year's recruiting class, remarkable. You're the headliner now for the second class, for her second class coming in for this 24-25 season. What did you see in Amber Whiting and her staff that can help her and help you further develop your game?
I really love Amber. I think she's a great coach, and she's super hardworking, and she pushes every athlete to do the same. And yeah, I think she's doing something special. She's changing the program, getting great recruits to come. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited.
Tell us about BYU basketball star Danny Ainge won 2 NBA championships with the Boston Celtics. That included a lot of playing time with the legendary Larry Bird. He joined the Wise Guys to talk about what that was like. But was there ever a time when you're out there with Larry when you said, hey, Larry, how about getting me the ball?
No, that didn't happen.
Not one time?
I remember, just to put in perspective, I remember I'm coming off of screens and, you know, like I said, I could get shots, you know, with those guys setting screens when I wanted. And the coach pulls me aside, Bill Fitch, and he says, okay, like, what do you expect to make on that shot? I go, I don't know, 52% I'm going to make on those turnouts. And he's going like, what does he shoot? Points to Larry. I go, yeah, 60. He goes, what does he shoot? And he points to Mikhail. He goes, 60. And it's like, do you get my point? Like, we don't need 52% shots, you know, coming off of down screens. And so, like, it just kind of, it changed me, but it was right. You know, if you're going to try to win, you know, like, those guys are just so special. They have to have the ball. You know, I see the game now, and it's completely different. And I saw throughout I remember we had a kid named Connor Henry who showed up maybe 3 years after this incident. He came in for a 10-day contract out of the G League. And he doesn't know any better, right? He's coming off screen. He's got his one crack at the NBA, and he's making all these shots. And I'm going, like, why is someone not saying it to him? Like, he can't be shooting those shots. But, you know, there's part of it that, you know, winning is what it's all about. And, you know, changing your game to win and conform to what's best for your team. I did have a good time. You know, I think I scored probably my 10 highest scoring games of my career when Bird didn't play or Mikhail or both of them didn't play. And so we used to have shoot around and like auction off or bet on those shots. Like, I get 10 of Larry's shots tonight. If I make a shot.
Because Larry's not playing.
I get 3 of his Mikhail's shots. And so that was those were fun games. But you know, playing with those guys, obviously we won a couple championships, went to the finals 4 years in a row, and those guys were a dream to play with.
How long were you there? Now you're face to face with him, you're playing, you're a teammate. Before you, and was there a moment where you're just about Larry Bird? Whoa, this dude is really special and he's different than all the rest. And did that moment, or did you already know that before you got there?
Yeah, I knew it before I got there, but there are moments when you're there and up close and personal, and you see everything that about him, his work ethic, and you know, the thing that stands out is his confidence. You know, I always consider myself a confident player, but, you know, Larry was an entirely different level. I mean, there's so many stories I have about just him taking games over and, we coach you, call a play, and like he's not running the play. Like it's just okay. He's just going to take it and score. Like, but he just had so much belief in himself, and he could get a shot. With double teams at the end of games, like teams knew what we were running, and he'd still get a quality look off it at being 6'10" and being able to shoot the way he did.
Ty Detmer won BYU's only Heisman Trophy, and he did it in 1990, the same year the Cougars knocked off number 1 ranked Miami in Provo. Ty's now a high school football coach in Arizona, where he's noticed the significant impact name, image, and likeness is having on the game he loves. When you think of BYU and SMU, and when you think of SMU, the death penalty usually follows with what they went through for paying players. Under today's standard, I don't think that would have ever happened. And we mention all the time, Jerry Tarkanian was a pioneer with what he had going on.
He started NIL. Jerry Tarkanian did at UNLV.
But what as the game moves forward, and you're a high school football coach, so you're sending kids into this system, do you see money just becoming the factor of where a kid goes?
Well, I think, first of all, a lot of kids think they're going to make a lot of money in college, and it's probably very few that actually do make, some money to really make a difference at the collegiate level, so it's probably sorting itself out a little bit now, and incentive based more so than just giving a guy a bunch of money to come to school there and he not even play or leave the next year and transfer somewhere else that wants to pay him. So I think people are starting to figure out that part of it a little bit, boosters and donors, and the kids are kind of probably realizing that there's not as much there as they originally thought, or, the incentive to go is less than maybe they thought. But, for me, it's more, where coaches leave and they take half the team with them, or 8 or 10 players. And, there's got to be like prior contact and some rules enforced that kind of prevent that happening, with the guy taking 6 or 8 guys with them, and Deion Sanders, bringing in 6 or 7 guys from his team and forcing other kids on the team to leave at that time. So it's kind of the wild, wild west, but something's got to be done to kind of rein it in a little bit. And a big part of it is the red shirt part of it. You look at coaches. I know the quarterback and the starting receiver at Houston a few years ago played the first 4 games. They were 1-3 and said, all right, we're done. We're going to transfer next year. So we're going to be done. And as a head coach, you're expected to win games, and the pressure's on to be successful. And, guys' livelihood, they're getting fired and things after seasons that they're kind of out of control, out of their control. Dallin Holker, for example, I'm sure coaches were counting on him, and it's his right to do those things. I'm not faulting him, but the system is kind of broken, where a kid can play the first 4 games and then decide to sit out the rest of the year. And now as coaches, you put all this time and energy in the spring and August practices, and the kid quits and leaves on you. And that's happening for a lot of kids across the board. So, maybe make the red shirt part. If you don't play, you can play in the last 4 games, and that's your red shirt. But if you play game week 1 or anywhere week 1 through week 6, that counts as a season. And you're not able to just go and quit on the team and leave coaches hanging. So the system's broken the way it is. They've got to figure it out. And then the transfer portal, we all know that's a mess. And a quarterback leaves one school, they bring in, 2 from another. And it's just something's got to give here in the next couple of years, or we're just in a free for all and everybody's open season every year.
Let's wrap up the show. Seems appropriate for this week with BYU grad and Broadway star Libby Lloyd. She's Blaine's daughter, and during her recent visit on the Wise Guys, she sang the Christmas Waltz. And here it is with Blaine on the guitar. Here's the great Libby Lloyd singing the Karen Carpenter classic, The Christmas Waltz. Blaine on the guitar. Wise Guys, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
It's a better picture.
Frosted
gleaming inside, painted candy canes on the tree. Santa's on his way, he's filled his sleigh with things for you and for me. It's that time of year when the world falls in love. Every song you hear seems to say, Merry Christmas, may your New Year's dreams come true. And this song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same thing too. It's that time of year when the world falls in love. Every song you hear seems to say, Merry Christmas, may your New Year's dreams come true. And this song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same things too.
Fantastic. Happy holidays from the Wise Guys. We hope to see you again starting next Monday night from 6 to 8 Mountain Time on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com as Blaine and I review 2023, the year in Cougar sports on the Wise Guys. For now, I'm Dave McCann. We wish you all a Merry Christmas.